In the early 1700s, the British colony of South Carolina was incredibly wealthy, but it had a massive geographical problem. Just to the south lay Spanish Florida, a hostile military power perfectly positioned to launch raids and incursions. To protect their lucrative assets, the British desperately needed a human shield. In 1732, King George II granted a royal charter to James Oglethorpe to build that buffer zone. But while the British government saw a military outpost, Oglethorpe saw a blank slate. He wanted to run a social experiment. His blueprint was based on strict agrarian equality. To prevent a wealthy planter elite, land ownership was capped at 50-acre parcels per family. Expanding plots was strictly forbidden, forcing a subsistence farming model where families grew only what they needed to survive. To enforce this vision, the trustees implemented a rule that stood entirely alone in the American South. From 1735 to 1750, African slavery was explicitly banned as a matter of public policy. Georgia was the only American colony engineered by its founders specifically to prevent massive wealth gaps and prohibit enslaved labor. It was a pure test of social idealism against the harsh mechanics of colonial economics. But the reality on the ground was physically punishing. Without a supplementary workforce, early Georgia settlers faced grueling, back-breaking labor just to clear the dense pine forests and maintain their small 50-acre farms. The environmental toll was devastating. The climate of the coastal South brought high mortality rates, particularly among white indentured servants, laborers who had signed contracts trading years of unpaid work for passage to America, who quickly succumbed to tropical diseases like malaria. They did succeed in their primary military function, famously repelling the Spanish at the Battle of Bloody Marsh. Yet, while the border held secure, the colonists themselves were drowning economically. The psychological breaking point came from geography. Early Georgians could look just across the Savannah River and see the sprawling, highly developed low-country estates of South Carolina. The Georgians realized exactly how their neighbors generated such immense wealth. South Carolina relied on the brutal efficiency and scale of enslaved African labor. Meanwhile, Georgia's strict rules of equality were bankrupting its own people. Oglethorpe's vision had cornered itself. The very rules designed to keep settlers equal were simply making them equally poor, driving the colony toward total capitulation. The pressure finally broke the experiment. By 1749, facing total economic collapse, the trustees completely caved and legally overturned the ban on slavery. A legislative domino effect quickly followed. The rigid 50-acre land limits were scrapped entirely, opening the door for unlimited private and corporate land expansion. Wealthy South Carolina planters flooded southward across the border. With massive capital behind them, they aggressively swallowed up the small, failing subsistence farms. These new elites instantly replicated the Carolina low-country culture. They imported thousands of enslaved people, building massive, highly profitable rice and indigo plantations along the coast and rapidly developing the state's commercial export infrastructure. In less than 2 decades, the original blueprint was completely erased. Georgia adopted the exact system of extreme wealth and exploitation it had been explicitly designed to prevent. In 1794, Eli Whitney introduced a technological catalyst that permanently sealed the state's economic fate: the cotton gin. This machine mechanized the separation of cotton fibers from their seeds. Suddenly, the processing of short staple cotton, a hardy variety of the plant with densely packed seeds that was previously too difficult to clean by hand, became incredibly fast and wildly profitable. This map shows how agricultural geography shifted. The plantation system exploded away from coastal rice fields, aggressively expanding deep into the state's interior. This conquered zone became known as the Black Belt. Named for its dark, fertile soil, the term soon became synonymous with the massive enslaved workforce required to harvest it. The human cost of this economic pivot was staggering. Under the trustees' rule, the enslaved population numbered fewer than 500 people, but the cotton boom drove those numbers to an industrial scale. By 1860, just prior to the Civil War, enslaved African Americans comprised 44% of Georgia's entire population of slightly over 1 million people. Early Georgia offers a stark study in economic determinism. Without ironclad enforcement, idealistic social engineering will always be crushed by the ruthless incentives of profit. A colony built to be a protective buffer ultimately transformed into the brutal core of the empire it was supposed to resist.